Grow, baby, grow. That's the message Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent delivered at Davos. And it's the three words the global elite fear the most, because their entire system depends on managing decline. And Donald Trump and his team just invited the world to abandon the Davos model. Commerce Secretary Howard Lutnick wasted no time in landing the first punch.
We are in Davos at the World Economic Forum. And the Trump administration and myself, we are here to make a very clear point. Globalization has failed the West and the United States of America. It's a failed policy. It is what the WEF has stood for, which is export, offshore, far shore, find the cheapest labor in the world, and the world is a better place for it.
And then Donald Trump followed up a few hours ago, saying that many parts of the world are being destroyed by the failed model of foreign jobs, mass migration, and green insanity. But if you listen to the mainstream media on both sides of the pond, you would think that Canada's Mark Carney is the defender of all that is good and noble. Carney's speech portrayed the stalwart Canadians and Europeans as the force which is now standing up to the great power hegemon like the United States, which has wrecked their beautiful post-war order. But here's what they didn't mention while defending their rules-based order. Since 1989, this order has given us forever wars and regime changes that have killed millions. And it's given the West a demographic collapse due to drugs, depopulation, and deindustrialization. And as for human rights, don't forget that the native populations in both Greenland and Canada were targets of forced sterilization campaigns carried out by their governments, who, by the way, are both monarchies. In Greenland, this included girls as young as 13. And here's the final irony. Overlooking Davos this week was a massive display reading "No Kings." Now, you have to laugh because, as my friend Tom Luongo said, if they meant it, they'd start freeing Greenland from the Danish monarchy. But they don't mean it. They never do. Because Carney and von der Leyen aren't selling democracy. Their speeches at Davos were the opening ad campaigns for Globalism Light, the same depopulation and deindustrialization agenda, just put in a smaller box. I'm Susan Kokinda, and for decades, my colleagues at Promethean Action and I have documented the anti-human policies of the European empires, and that they have not gone away. They've just been repackaged as environmentalism or free trade. And if this is your kind of fight, then I need you to hit the like, share, and subscribe buttons so we can stay in touch and you can help us expand our reach. So here's what I'm going to talk about today. First, how Donald Trump and his team delivered the Davos post-mortem. Second, why Carney's Globalism Light is dead on arrival. And third, how Trump's policies are reversing death, depopulation, and deindustrialization. So let's start with the message the Trump team brought to Davos. It wasn't a negotiation, it was a reality check.
What we are here to say is that America First is a different model, one that we encourage other countries to consider, which is that our workers come first. We can have policies that impact our workers. Sovereignty is your borders. You're entitled to have borders. You shouldn't offshore your medicine. You shouldn't offshore your semiconductors. You shouldn't offshore your entire industrial base and have it be hollowed out beneath you. You should not be dependent for that which is fundamental to your sovereignty on any other nation. And if you're going to be dependent on someone, it darn well better be your best allies. Okay? And so that is a different way of thinking. It is completely different than the WEF.
Lutnick delivered the what, but Treasury Secretary Bessent provided the why.
There's just a different mindset here, and I think the mindset has got to change. It's got to change to a growth mentality, and that's President Trump's invitation is we are growing, we're deregulating, and come and join us. We have identified the greatest financial risk as a lack of growth because post-COVID, every government balance sheet has ballooned, and we have this gigantic government debt. There are two ways. You can either cut your way out of it through austerity, no voter wants that, or you can grow your way out of it. So we are inviting the world, come grow with us, prosper with us, and we can all do it together.
What he's talking about is really the American system in action. Bessent is saying that industrial growth and a growing population are the foundations of an economy, not financial income streams. This is a reversal of the WEF globalist imperial policy, which only exists to feed powerful monopolies, whether it was the British East India Company 200 years ago or the global financial institutions based in London and Wall Street today. And for over 100 years, you've been denied the knowledge that there was an American system alternative to what we see today as globalism. Well, U.S. Trade Representative Jameson Greer just delivered another bombshell at Davos in a speech entitled "The Hamiltonian Economic System That Too Many Have Forgotten." He laid out the uniquely American economic policy of Alexander Hamilton with stunning clarity, and we'll be covering that in more detail over the coming days, so make sure you're subscribed. Because what you're seeing out in the open on the stage at Davos is a clear example of two systems that have been in mortal combat since the American Revolution, a revolution which we're celebrating this year. The fight is not between communism and capitalism, but the American system versus the British imperial system. So if you are beginning to realize that the battlefield is a little different than the one you've been taught to fight on, you should head on over to Promethean Action and subscribe to our free newsletter. Because Trump and his team are delivering their powerful message to the world. We don't just want to grow and prosper alone. We want you to abandon the insanity and join us. Because everything that President Trump has done in his first year has been to grow, baby, grow, to unleash the productive power of America's workers and to throttle the power of the financier elite. But don't expect Carney and his friends to accept these offers. For the Davos crowd, this is an extinction-level event. Their entire power structure is based on feeding financial income streams by finding new sectors of the economy to loot and driving down living standards and population growth. So instead of accepting the invitation to grow, European elite are doubling down on managed decline in a downsized version. They call it regionalization. I call it Globalism Light. They want to link the European Union with the South American Common Market and other regional clusters to keep the Green New Deal and the Paris Accord alive. Mark Carney played his new role as the face of Globalism 2.0 to a T. He gave the tough love speech on behalf of the elites, declaring that the old order isn't transitioning, it's rupturing, and he left no doubt as to who was doing the rupturing.
Today I will talk about a rupture in the world order. The end of a pleasant fiction and the beginning of a harsh reality where geopolitics, where the large main power geopolitics is submitted to no limits, no constraints.
It seems that every day we're reminded that we live in an era of great power rivalry, that the rules-based order is fading, that the strong can do what they can and the weak must suffer what they must.
He made clear that it's really the United States and Russia who are the hegemons who must be contained. What is Carney's solution to the threat of these hegemons? The intermediate powers of the world, led by Canada and the EU, who will forge new regional blocs that will stand up to Trump's America. But there's only one problem. The policies of those regional blocs are the same failed policies that have propelled nations like the United States and Russia and Hungary and others to exit globalization so that they can actually grow and prosper. But that reality doesn't penetrate the thinking of these globalist sock puppets. Just listen to EU head Ursula von der Leyen proudly announcing the emergence of a new Europe and a new regional deal with South America.
This new Europe is already emerging. On Saturday, I was in Asunción, in Paraguay, to sign the EU-Mercosur trade agreement. It was a breakthrough after 25 years of negotiations. And with it, the European Union and Latin America have created the largest free trade zone in the world, a market worth over 20% of global GDP, 31 countries with over 700 million consumers aligned with the Paris Agreement.
Did you catch that? Their big New Deal is just free trade plus the Paris Climate Accords. So they're taking the failed policies of globalism and shoving them into smaller regional packages. Those policies have not only failed, they're evil. And this is where the Greenland story exposes the lie. They strut around Davos claiming moral superiority against an unprincipled United States, but their system, the system of the British Crown and the other European empires repackaged as the EU, is anti-human to its core. Denmark's treatment of Greenland proves that their view of population hasn't changed. Whether it's forced sterilization or the deindustrialization of Germany, or the suppression of economic development in Africa, or endless wars in the Mideast and Europe, it's all the same. Less people, less growth, less life. Carney calls this a rupture. Well, he's right. It is a rupture from their system of death. And thank God Donald Trump came along to be the disruptor. The most profound contrast between Trump and Davos isn't just about trade or about Greenland. It's about what a society is for. The Davos model keeps populations under control, while the financier elite loots economies and living standards. The American system is focused on fostering physical growth. And the key to this is the growth of a productive, prosperous, middle and working class, a point which Trump's team came back to over and over again. And the day before he traveled to Davos, President Trump released his dramatic new initiative on housing, which really is a pillar for family formation and population growth. Here's what the president's new order says. Buying and owning a home has long been considered the pinnacle of the American dream, but a growing share of single-family homes have been purchased by large Wall Street investors, crowding out families. People live in homes, not corporations. My administration will take decisive action to stop Wall Street from treating America's neighborhoods like a trading floor. And as he pointed out at Davos, many of those Wall Street investors were right there in the audience. So what he is doing is really big. He is explicitly saying that large institutional investors should not buy single-family homes. Think about the difference. Davos wants you renting a little 800-square-foot apartment and owning nothing. Trump wants you owning a home and building intergenerational wealth. And it's not just housing. Look at some of the other things that have emerged just in the past couple of weeks. Rural health. Last week, the administration announced the largest investment in rural health care in history. Dr. Oz motivated it by pointing out that mortality rates are 9 years lower in rural America than anywhere else. He announced with these new investments, quote, your zip code will no longer be your destiny. And then let's look at fentanyl. With Trump's actual border enforcement, the flow of this poison has been cut dramatically, and fentanyl deaths have fallen by approximately 20% over the last year. That's not just a statistic, that's thousands of young Americans who are alive today because of Trump's policies. So this is the choice. The Davos paradigm has always been about managing scarcity and reducing the population. And when people like Carney and von der Leyen speak about a new Europe or new agreements, they don't intend to change anything. They still see human beings as burdens on Mother Earth or cannon fodder for a free trade system. The American system and Donald Trump look at a human being and they see a creator. President Trump wants to build a future where your children are wealthier than you are and more numerous. Understanding the policies that will do that is a central mission of Promethean Action. So please join us as a supporting member or contributor and be part of this second American revolution. The Trump team didn't go to Davos to give a speech. They went there to tell the old world that the age of imperial looting is over and that the new banner for the world is Grow Baby Grow. This has been your midweek update. Thanks for watching.
Please take a moment and subscribe to our free newsletter at prometheanaction.com.